Good morning, dear students. In the previous session, we have discussed about matter, where you have learnt that matter is anything that has mass and it takes up space. Then we have discussed about mass. What is mass? How much matter it takes to make an item, that is called its mass. Then we have discussed about volume. What is volume? How much space the item takes up. That means the amount of space occupied by matter is called its volume. Then we have discussed about the matter that there are three states in which matter exists. These are solid, liquid, and gases. Well, in detail, we have discussed about solids, where you have learnt that a solid has a fixed shape and a fixed volume. Why does it have a fixed shape and a fixed volume? Because in solids, the molecules are found very close to each other. Therefore, they cannot move closer or away from each other. So, due to strong cohesion, that is intermolecular force of attraction, the solids have definite shape and definite volume. Then we have discussed that solids, they generally cannot be compressed. The reason is same. The main reason is the solids, due to very small intermolecular space, they cannot come closer to each other. Its intermolecular space is almost negligible. That is why there is no possibility of compressibility. But there are certain examples which we have discussed also, like loaf of bread, sponge. These have air spaces, so we can compress these items, but when the pressure is removed, force which is applied is removed, what happens? It comes back to its original shape. Then solids, due to the weak intermolecular space, or you can say strong intermolecular force, they are tightly held. The molecules are very close to each other and they cannot slip over one another. That is why it is said a solid does not flow. Then we have discussed about an activity which shows that a solid expands on heating and it is contracting when it is cooled down. Now, today we are going to discuss about the general properties of liquids. Well, as you know, the intermolecular force in liquids is weaker than in solids. So, the molecules are farther apart and are not tightly held in their positions. Therefore, they can slip over one another, and this is the reason the liquids can flow. Now, let's talk about the general properties of liquids. The very first property of liquids which we are going to discuss is a liquid has no fixed shape, but it takes the shape of the container it is kept in. For this, there you can perform an activity. You can pour equal quantities of water into different containers. These containers can be of different shapes. In each case, water will take the shape of the container. In every case, what you will find, the volume of water will remain the same. So this is to be taken care that the volume of water which you are taking should be the same which you are keeping in different containers. The shape of a liquid changes as the molecules can slip over one another and settle down to assume the shapes of the containers into which the liquid is poured. Now here you can see there are different containers shown. A glass is there, bottle is there, test tube or beaker can be taken. So equal amount of water when poured into different containers, the liquid will take the shape of different containers. So we can say that a liquid does not have a definite shape because it takes up the shape of the container, but it has definite volume. The volume in each case does not change as the molecules cannot come closer to or move away from each other. Another property of liquids is a liquid can be compressed only to a small extent. So, why is it that a liquid can be compressed only to a small extent? The reason is, as you can see in the module, in the center part, it is showing the molecules in the liquid. The intermolecular space in liquids, as you can see here, is not very large. So, the molecules can be pushed closer only to a limited extent. And this is the reason the liquid can be compressed, but it can be compressed only to a small extent. Then another property of liquid is it can flow. Why it can flow? The reason is the intermolecular force of the liquids, the intermolecular force of the liquids is weak. It's weaker than solids. So therefore, the molecules can slip over one another, and this is the reason the liquids can flow. Another property of liquids is a liquid expands or contracts more than a solid. How? For example, when a liquid is heated, as here you can see in the module, water is being heated. When a liquid is heated, the molecules move more vigorously and go farther away from each other. And this is how the liquid expands. The water on heating is changing into water vapor. So the expansion in a liquid is greater than in solids. As you can see in the solids, when the ice cubes get the heat of the surrounding, they change into liquid water. But in case of the liquid, when it is heated, it expands on heating and changes into water vapor. So if you remember, the molecules of a solid cannot leave their fixed positions. Why they cannot leave their fixed positions? Because they have strong intermolecular force of attraction. But in case of liquids, there is intermolecular space and the intermolecular force of attraction is weaker than solids. So this is the reason the molecules can move far apart. Now, when the liquid is cooled down, what happens? The molecules, they become less energetic and they move less vigorously. And thereby, what happens? They come closer and the liquid contracts. So, the contraction is greater than in solids because the intermolecular space in the liquids is greater than in the solids. Another property of liquids is all liquids do not mix with each other. Now here in the example you can see so many liquids are visible and they look that they are miscible liquids. Two different liquids can be mixed together. For example, water mixes with milk, honey and alcohol. But if you have ever observed, oil does not mixes with water. So the liquids which mix with each other, they are called as miscible liquids, and those which do not mix with each other, they are called as immiscible liquids. Now, let's move on to the general properties of gases. Now here in the module you can see that the gases are spread all over. So as you know, the intermolecular space is much larger and the cohesion is much weaker in case of gases. If we compare the intermolecular space and intermolecular force of attraction in gases, when we compare it with solids and liquids, it is different. The cohesion is weaker and intermolecular space is larger. Now the reason why it is weaker or larger, the reason is because the gases have, as you know, the gases have weak cohesion. Why do they have weak cohesion? Because gas molecules can move about much more freely than solid and liquid molecules. Due to this weak cohesion, the intermolecular force of attraction is very less or almost negligible. This is the reason the gases can move freely in all the directions. In fact, they can move about everywhere. Gases, they also flow. Liquids and gases are also called as fluids. What are they called? They are called as fluids. If you remember, in biology also you have learnt about it, that the gases and the liquids, because they have the ability to flow, they are called as fluids. And this question was asked in exam also. Some of you have written the right answer, but there are many those who were not able to write this answer. So this is the reason the teachers always tell you that you should read your books carefully, because there are so many questions which can be framed from within the chapter. It's not that always you will get the questions from the back of the chapter. So this is an important objective question, that liquids and gases, they are called as fluids. Why they are called as fluids? Because this can be a reasoning question. Because the gases and the liquids, they have the ability to flow. Now let's talk about the first property of gases. A gas has neither a fixed volume nor a fixed shape. Then what happens to this gas if it is being heated or if it is to be kept into any container? It assumes the volume and shape of the container. Remember that unlike a liquid, the gases occupies the entire volume of the container. It is not that it is going to take only the small it is going to occupy only the small space of the container, but actually the gases occupy the entire volume of the container. And what is the reason it is occupying the entire volume of the container? The reason is because the molecules are free to move in all the directions. So, we say that a gas has neither a fixed volume nor a fixed shape. It takes up the shape and volume of the container. Another property of gases is the gas expands or contracts to a great extent on being heated or cooled. For example, on being heated, the gaseous molecules, they become more energetic and move even farther apart. Even farther apart means already the gaseous molecules are far apart from each other. Now when they are being heated, they move even farther apart. In other words, we can say that the gases expands. And the reason why they expand is the intermolecular force in case of gases is very small, and this is the reason the expansion is large. On being cooled, the same gas, because the gaseous molecules become now less energetic, they move less vigorously, and this brings them close enough for intermolecular attraction to come into play, and they bring the molecules closer to each other, not very close to each other, but little closer to each other. So the intermolecular space is considerably reduced. In other words, we can say that this is how the gases contract to some extent. Then another property of gases is gases can be compressed to a much larger extent than solids and liquids. This is because the molecules are very far apart in gases. As you can see in the module, here it shows the molecules are far apart from each other. So, in case of gases, the molecules are very far apart from each other and they come much closer to each other when pressure is applied. So, you can push in a lot of air into a small volume of your cycle tube because air is very much compressible. This is the reason air can be filled in your cycle. Another property of gases is gases mix freely with one another. Gases, they are able to mix freely with each other because the molecules of a gas can easily occupy the large intermolecular spaces of another gas. And this phenomenon is known as diffusion. Now here in the module, you can see in the first part there it shows the molecules of different colors. One is of purple color and one is of red color. So these two different colors show the different gases. Okay, so these different gases, when they are put together in a container, what will happen? The molecules will diffuse with one another. They will mix freely with one another, and this is only known as diffusion. The molecules of a gas will occupy the intermolecular spaces of another gas, and this phenomena is called as diffusion. The same thing happens in case of perfume also. The fragrance of a perfume, it spreads all over in the room, by the diffusion of its vapors through air. So, we say that gases, they mix freely with one another. So, with this, we come to an end of the properties of solids, liquids, and gases. Now, let's quickly revise what we have discussed. Let's compare the properties of solids, liquids, and gases. Well, what you have learned is, in case of solids, you have learned that the solids have definite shape. In case of liquids, you have learned that they do not have definite shape, and when we talk about gases, they also do not have definite shape. Solids, they have definite volume. Liquids take up the volume of the container, and gases also assumes the shape and volume of the container. Then another property of solids you have learned is solids do not flow. But when we talk about liquids, liquids can flow. Liquids can flow because they are able to slide. The molecules in the liquids are able to slide over one another. And when we talk about gases, gases also can flow, because gases also have the ability to flow. They are also fluids. So they also can flow, and they can flow in all the directions. Then you have learned that the solids, they cannot be compressed. They are virtually virtually impossible to compress the solids. But few exceptions are there, like loaf of bread, sponge, etc. But when we talk about liquids, liquids can be compressed to small extent, and when we talk about gases, gases can be easily compressed. So, with this, we end up today's session. In the next session, we'll be discussing about the Brownian movement and action of heat on matter. So it is expected that you will read the content of these two topics that is given in the book, so that it becomes easier for you to understand what we are discussing. And whatever work is given in the PDF, you are expected to complete that work in your fair copies, because as I have already told, your copies will be collected for correction each month, and as we complete this chapter, the copies will be collected for correction. So you are supposed to complete all your work that is given. It should be completed in the fair copy, and this copy correction will give you internal assessment marks of 5 marks. So kindly complete the work in your fair copies, and you are expected to write the work in the copy, in the same copy which you are using. Don't make a new copy every time. This time already you have done very less work. In the first semester, there were not many students, those who have completed all their work of the first semester. So definitely for those children, most of the pages are left. In the second semester also, some of you did the complete work, but there were many those who wrote few answers only. But now we expect the complete answer, the complete work that is given as PDF, that is to be done in the copy, should be done in the same copy which you are using from the first semester. Don't make new copy each time. Utilize those pages which are left in the copy which you were using. And most importantly, write your answers in proper handwriting, because everything you are the answers which you are writing, it is given as PDF, so you have to see that and you have to copy it down. So it is expected that you copy down the correct spelling also. Don't make mistakes in writing. So with this, we end up today's session. God bless you.